Have you ever felt completely invisible even when standing in a crowded room? Like no matter how hard you try, you'll never truly be seen or valued by the people who matter most? Well, my name is Lily, and this was exactly my story. For nearly my entire life, I lived in the shadow of my older sister, Emily, the golden child who could seemingly do no wrong. To our parents, she was flawless, gifted, the perfect daughter they'd always dreamed of. Meanwhile, I was just there, invisible in plain sight, silently craving the attention and approval I knew I'd never receive. Growing up, birthdays came and went with little acknowledgement. Achievements were quietly overlooked, and my best efforts were treated as ordinary. I quickly learned to fade quietly into the background, convinced that perhaps I simply wasn't special enough to deserve more. The hurt piled up year after year, until eventually I believed it. I believed that I truly wasn't worth noticing. But life has a strange way of shaking things up right when you least expect it. Just after turning 20, I stumbled upon a family secret so shocking, so heartbreaking, that it completely turned my world upside down. It wasn't just the fact that my parents had lied to me, it was the realization of just how deep their deception truly ran. It forced me to question everything I'd known about myself, my sister, and the family I thought I understood. Now, I'm finally ready to share my story with you. It's a journey about discovering hidden truths, confronting heartbreaking betrayals, and finding strength in places I never imagined. But more importantly, it's about learning that your worth isn't defined by those around you. It's something you carry deep within yourself, waiting patiently to be acknowledged. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in comfortably, and stay with me, because trust me, once you hear how my story unfolds, you'll never look at family, forgiveness, or even yourself the same way again. Welcome to my story. Let's dive in. It all started vividly in my mind on Emily's 16th birthday. That day is etched into my memory like an old film reel, playing over and over, each detail painfully clear. I watched silently from the corner as my parents handed her the keys to a shiny cherry-red convertible wrapped neatly in a giant white ribbon. The excitement on her face was matched only by the pride radiating from theirs. Neighbors and friends cheered around her, the camera flashes reflecting off the glossy paint as Emily climbed gracefully into the driver's seat. I stood apart, smiling politely while my heart tightened with envy, not because of the car itself, but because of the attention, the celebration, the love that seemed effortlessly hers. From that moment, I clung desperately to the idea that maybe, just maybe, my turn would come, that someday I'd feel that same warmth, that same recognition. 2 years later, when my own 16th birthday arrived, I allowed myself the smallest flicker of hope. But as the day wore on, reality came crashing down in a way I'd become accustomed to. Instead of a shiny new car or even a simple gathering, I got a rusty bicycle from a clearance rack. Its blue paint was chipped, tires half deflated, and the brakes squeaked embarrassingly. My parents handed it over with a forced smile, their minds clearly somewhere else, probably occupied with Emily's latest piano recital. "Thanks," I whispered quietly, forcing a smile, desperately trying not to show the hurt spreading through my chest. My mother barely glanced up. "You're welcome, Lily." "Now go try it out," she said dismissively, already turning back toward Emily, who'd walked into the room holding another award from school. I stood alone in the driveway, gripping the worn handlebars so tightly that my knuckles turned white. That moment crystallized something inside of me. I wasn't second best. I was invisible, an afterthought. A bitter wave of loneliness swept through me, and a familiar voice whispered that I shouldn't have expected anything different. From that day forward, each creak of the bicycle pedals felt like a cruel joke, echoing the deep emptiness I carried inside. Yet I learned to swallow my disappointment, smiling through each forgotten birthday, each overlooked achievement. I convinced myself it was fine. That maybe if I could just work harder, do better, I could earn their attention and finally step out of Emily's shadow. But life had other plans, and soon I'd learn the painful truth behind why I'd always been invisible. A truth far darker than I could ever imagine. When I finally graduated high school, a spark of excitement stirred inside me. Not because I expected praise from my parents, I knew better, but because I'd received a college acceptance letter. It wasn't the prestigious university Emily attended, but to me it felt like a lifeline. Even better, my grandmother, the one person in my family who'd always made me feel truly seen, had promised to help financially. Her support was a tiny flame of hope that kept me going through those difficult final months of high school. The day I moved into my dorm, I waited eagerly for my grandmother's promised help to arrive. Days turned into weeks, yet nothing came. My savings quickly dwindled, and anxiety crept in like a dark shadow. When I finally called my mother, hesitant and nervous, the conversation went even worse than I'd feared. "Mom," I began softly, choosing my words carefully. "Grandma mentioned she'd help with my living expenses at school. I was just wondering, has anything arrived?" Her voice turned sharp instantly. "Are you serious, Lily? Your grandmother is going through some financial issues right now. Honestly, how selfish can you be begging for money at a time like this? Why don't you get a job like everyone else instead of always expecting handouts?" I felt her words like a physical blow. Shame heated my face as I mumbled an apology and hung up, tears burning behind my eyes. Was I really selfish? Her words echoed in my head for days, making it hard to sleep or concentrate. Finally, I did what she suggested. I got a job. In fact, I got two. One waiting tables at a small cafe near campus, and another freelance writing late at night for various blogs and websites. Between classes and these two jobs, exhaustion became my constant companion. There were days when hunger gnawed at me because even with two incomes, the money just wasn't enough. During holiday breaks, when the cafe closed, meals turned into a luxury I couldn't always afford. Then, one bitterly cold morning, my old laptop, the lifeline for my classes and writing assignments, gave up completely. I sat frozen, staring helplessly at the blank screen. Tears blurred my vision. I knew I didn't have a penny to spare for repairs. Just as hopelessness was about to overwhelm me completely, my roommate Ava stepped in. "Lily," she said gently, noticing my despair. "Let me help. I can ask my parents to lend me money. You can pay me back whenever." Humiliation washed over me, but I had no choice. Accepting Ava's help, I wrote down every dollar carefully, determined that someday I'd repay her kindness. That small act of generosity from someone unrelated to me, a stranger until recently, revealed how deeply starved I'd been for compassion my entire life. Yet, as I juggled my exhaustion and loneliness, I couldn't shake the nagging question, why had my grandmother never contacted me? She'd always kept her word before, always made sure I was okay. Something didn't add up, but what I discovered next would bring answers and a pain far deeper than anything I'd experienced before. Months passed, and though life remained challenging, I managed to scrape by. Still, beneath my busy routine of classes and late-night writing, something felt off. An unshakable feeling lingered, that there was a missing piece, something important I hadn't understood yet. Then came Grandma's 70th birthday party. Despite my tight budget, I scraped together enough money to buy her a simple, heartfelt gift, a small necklace with her birthstone. As I stepped into her cozy, familiar home, nostalgia washed over me. The warm smells of home-cooked food filled the air, and for a moment my burdens lifted. Yet, even here, I instinctively stayed in the shadows, cautious not to draw attention. At the dinner table, surrounded by cousins, uncles, and aunts, laughter and chatter filled the room. Grandma smiled warmly, her eyes meeting mine briefly, filled with genuine affection that momentarily eased the ache in my chest. The conversation flowed naturally until my cousin Rachel looked up suddenly, frowning at me with concern. "Lily, have you lost weight? You look really thin," she asked loudly enough for the entire table to hear. My cheeks burned as silence swept through the room. Before I could respond, Mom quickly interjected with a forced laugh. "Oh, Lily's just obsessed with those silly college diets. Aren't you, dear?" I opened my mouth to correct her, but Grandma spoke first. Her voice was quiet but firm, filled with gentle concern. "No, she's right. Lily, sweetheart, you look unwell. Isn't the monthly allowance I've been sending enough for groceries and expenses?" The room instantly went silent. The fork slipped from my trembling fingers, clinking sharply onto the plate. My heart raced wildly as confusion gripped me. "What allowance, Grandma?" I whispered, barely audible. "I haven't received anything." Grandma's face turned pale, her warm smile replaced by confusion, then concern, and finally anger as her eyes slowly shifted toward my parents. Her voice dropped dangerously low as she addressed them directly. "Is there something I should know about the money I've been sending for Lily's college expenses?" Mom shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting nervously around the table. "Mother," she began awkwardly, "this isn't the right time or place." But Grandma cut her off, her tone cold and resolute. "Now seems exactly the right time. Explain yourselves." Dad cleared his throat, staring at his plate. The room was painfully silent, all eyes fixed on my parents. Finally, my father spoke hesitantly, avoiding eye contact with me. "We had to use Lily's allowance for Emily. She got herself into some trouble. It's complicated." My entire body went numb as the truth sank in. Every sleepless night, every skipped meal, every moment of despair flashed before my eyes. The one lifeline I depended on, Grandma's support, had been secretly diverted to Emily. My sister, the golden child, had unknowingly stolen the last shred of hope I'd been holding on to. Grandma rose slowly, her eyes flashing with anger I'd never witnessed before. "My study now," she commanded my parents, leaving no room for argument. As they silently followed her, I remained at the table stunned. Everything I'd ever believed shattered around me, leaving only confusion, betrayal, and a painful realization. My invisibility had never been accidental. And yet, this was only the beginning of the deeper secrets soon to surface. After Grandma and my parents disappeared into her study, a thick tension hung over the dining room, suffocating and heavy. Relatives attempted awkward small talk, filling the silence with forced laughter, but my mind was elsewhere. My hands trembled as I tried to process the reality of what I'd just learned. How long had my parents been taking Grandma's money? And why would Emily, who seemed to have everything, need my support as well? Unable to bear the tension any longer, I quietly slipped away from the table, drawn toward Grandma's closed study door. Pressing my ear gently against the polished wood, I strained to catch fragments of their muffled voices. "You stole from your own daughter." Grandma's voice trembled with quiet fury. "How could you justify it?" My mother's voice cracked defensively. "Emily was in trouble. She owed money, and we couldn't let her ruin her future." "Yet you had no problem jeopardizing Lily's?" Grandma's disappointment cut sharper than anger. My heart ached at hearing someone finally defend me. My father's tone grew desperate, pleading. "We thought Lily would be fine. She's always so independent. Emily needed our help more." Grandma's voice hardened. "No, what Emily needed was discipline, not enabling. You've damaged both your daughters in your blindness." I stepped away from the door, tears burning my eyes. The painful truth settled in my chest like a heavy stone. They'd chosen Emily, consciously sacrificing me, believing I'd somehow manage on my own. My parents had never misunderstood me, they simply hadn't cared enough to prioritize me. Minutes later, the study door swung open abruptly and my parents emerged. faces pale and defeated. They hurried past me without meeting my eyes, retreating toward the exit. Grandma followed, her expression stern yet deeply sad. When her eyes found mine, they softened instantly. "Lily," she whispered, gently taking my hand. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I should have realized sooner. Let's talk." We sat together in the quiet comfort of her living room, and Grandma slowly revealed more of the painful truth I'd never expected. My parents hadn't just taken the monthly allowance, they'd also diverted tens of thousands from the education fund Grandma had set up specifically for me. Instead of paying my tuition and supporting my dreams, they'd poured everything into fixing Emily's hidden troubles. "What happened with Emily, Grandma?" I finally found the courage to ask, my voice shaking slightly. She sighed deeply, pain clear in her gentle eyes. "Emily's struggled for years now, Lily. Your parents hid it from everyone. She developed a gambling habit and got involved with dangerous people. They've bailed her out repeatedly, each time hoping it would be the last." My heart twisted painfully, suddenly flooded with conflicted feelings, anger, betrayal, but also sadness. My perfect sister, their precious golden child, was flawed and hurting beneath her polished exterior. Yet, instead of confronting her issues openly, my parents had chosen to bury the truth, even at the cost of my own well-being. Grandma squeezed my hand reassuringly. "I promise you, Lily, this ends now. From today forward, your parents will no longer control your future or your finances. I'll personally ensure you receive every bit of support you're owed." Tears spilled freely down my cheeks, a mix of relief and lingering hurt. After years of invisibility, someone finally saw me clearly. Yet, a haunting question still lingered. Could I ever forgive the family who'd betrayed me so deeply? Or was the damage beyond repair? The answers, I soon discovered, would test my heart in ways I couldn't yet imagine. If my story touched your heart, or resonated with your own experiences, please give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell notification so you won't miss what happens next. I'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts. If you were in my shoes, would you be able to forgive your family, or would you choose to walk away completely? Drop your thoughts down in the comments below. I'll be reading every single one. In the days after Grandma's birthday, I returned to college feeling emotionally drained, yet strangely empowered. Finally, I had someone who believed me, someone who saw past Emily's perfect mask and recognized my pain. Grandma's reassurance helped ease the ache, but it also ignited something new inside me, a quiet determination to confront my parents directly, to finally voice the hurt that had silently festered for so long. I didn't have to wait long for my chance. One afternoon, completely unannounced, my parents arrived at my dorm. My roommate Ava quickly excused herself, sensing the tension thickening in the small room. Dad stood awkwardly by my desk. Mom hesitantly perched herself at the edge of Ava's bed, avoiding eye contact. "Lily," Dad began carefully, clearing his throat nervously, "we need your help. Grandma has decided to rewrite her will and, well, she's planning to leave everything to you." My heart thumped heavily and I folded my arms, waiting silently. I already sensed where this conversation was headed. Mom leaned forward, desperation coloring her voice. "You have to convince her to reconsider, Lily. Your sister needs help, serious help, and we're completely overwhelmed. Emily's in trouble again. She owes money to some very dangerous people. If we don't get assistance soon..." I stared at them incredulously. Anger surged through me, a powerful, unfamiliar heat. They'd traveled all this way not to apologize, not to admit their mistakes, but simply to ask me, again, to sacrifice for Emily. "So you want me to lie?" My voice trembled slightly, betraying the fury simmering beneath. "You want me to pretend you've been good parents so Grandma will bail Emily out one more time?" Mom flinched while Dad shifted uncomfortably. "We're your family, Lily," he tried weakly. My laughter was sharp, bitter, surprising even myself. "Family, that's rich?" Family doesn't take everything from one child to enable the other. Family doesn't let one daughter go hungry, struggling alone, while showering the other with love and money. Mom's eyes widened, defensive anger quickly masking the guilt beneath. "Don't exaggerate, Lily." Things weren't that bad. Something inside me snapped, a dam bursting open. "Not that bad?" My voice rose sharply. "Do you even realize what not that bad looks like? It's working 2 jobs and still not being able to afford groceries. It's wearing shoes so worn out they barely hold together because I couldn't spare $10 for replacements. It's crying myself to sleep because I didn't have anyone I could call for help, especially not my parents." Mom visibly paled, averting her gaze. Dad cleared his throat again, weakly grasping for sympathy. "Emily has an addiction. She's sick." What were we supposed to do? Let her suffer? And what about me? Tears spilled down my face, hot with years of pent-up hurt. Was I supposed to quietly suffer in silence? Was it easier to pretend I didn't exist, to just hope I'd survive without you? A tense silence hung between us, thick and painful. Dad finally spoke, quietly pleading. "We made mistakes, Lily, but your sister is in danger right now. We just need you to talk to Grandma. Please." I shook my head slowly, firmly, the words finally clear in my heart and mind. "No, you've chosen Emily every single time. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it." Mom stood abruptly, her voice sharp and accusing. "You're being selfish, Lily." I stared back, stunned and angry. The same painful words she'd thrown at me countless times before now echoed clearly in the tiny room, but this time they no longer carried the power to hurt me. "Leave," I said, pointing toward the door, my voice steady despite my shaking hands. "You gave up the right to ask anything of me a long time ago." Without another word, they left, closing the door quietly behind them. Alone, I sank onto my bed, shaking with a mix of pain, anger, and something else, strength. For the first time in my life, I'd stood my ground. I had finally found my voice. Yet, I knew deep down, my story wasn't finished. Life was about to offer me another unexpected twist, one that would change everything once more. After the confrontation with my parents, I realized something had shifted profoundly inside me. The quiet girl who'd once hidden behind smiles and apologies was slowly fading away. In her place stood someone new, a woman determined not just to survive, but to finally build a life on her own terms. Grandma began transferring money directly to my account, eliminating my financial worries for the first time since I started college. With this newfound support, I gradually let go of one of my part-time jobs. Suddenly, I had time to breathe, to enjoy small pleasures I'd previously denied myself, buying fresh groceries, getting coffee with Ava, even attending campus events. My grades improved dramatically. Professors noticed, praising my engagement in class discussions and offering opportunities I'd never dreamed possible. One afternoon, my psychology professor approached me after class. "Lily, your latest essay was outstanding," she smiled warmly. "Have you considered applying for our department's research assistant position next semester? It comes with a stipend." Initially, I hesitated, old doubts resurfacing immediately. But Ava overheard and nudged me playfully, whispering, "Do it, Lily, it's time." I smiled back, feeling hope and excitement bubbling gently inside my chest. "Yes," I answered confidently. "I'd love to apply." Over the next few weeks, something remarkable happened. The more I embraced this new sense of confidence, the more doors seemed to open. I found friendships blossoming naturally, joined study groups, and even attended social events I'd once avoided. It was as if I'd stepped from darkness into sunlight for the first time. Spring break approached, and Ava announced excitedly that our friends were organizing a trip to Miami Beach. Instinctively, I prepared to decline as usual, but then stopped myself. This time, I realized I didn't need to say no. You know what? I surprised even myself as the word slipped out. I'm in. Ava's shocked expression quickly melted into joyful laughter. Who are you, and what did you do with Lily? I laughed, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. For once, life felt simple, free of guilt and limitations imposed by others. Grandma called frequently, checking in on me. Her voice filled me with warmth each time, reassuring me I'd made the right decisions. One evening, though, Aunt Karen, my mother's sister, called unexpectedly, her voice hesitant yet serious. Lily, your parents sold their house, she explained softly. Emily's situation worsened. They're deeply in debt and struggling terribly. I listened quietly, absorbing the news. For the first time, I didn't immediately feel obligated to fix their problems. Instead, a quiet calm filled me. I'm sorry to hear that, I responded gently, yet firmly. But those choices belong to them, not me. Hanging up the phone, I breathed deeply, realizing I'd truly moved forward. My parents' troubles were theirs alone. The burden no longer weighed on my shoulders. Days later, packing for my first ever spring break vacation, excitement mixed with nervousness. I'd never allowed myself such an indulgence, never believed I deserved something purely enjoyable. But standing there, holding my suitcase, I finally understood that living wasn't just surviving. It meant embracing moments of happiness without guilt. As we arrived in Miami, sunlight sparkling on turquoise waves, laughter filling the air, I felt freer than I'd ever imagined possible. Yet even as joy washed over me, somewhere deep inside I knew life had another chapter waiting. The past wasn't entirely finished with me, not yet. My phone buzzed suddenly, a message flashing across the screen, an unknown number. Lily, it's Emily. Please, we need to talk. My heart skipped, uncertainty and anxiety battling with newfound strength inside me. I had rebuilt my life, found my footing, but could I truly face Emily now after everything? Could I forgive? Or would facing her bring back all the pain I'd fought so hard to escape? Whatever the answer was, I knew one thing for certain. I was finally ready to find out. I stared at the phone, my thumb hovering uncertainly above the reply button. Emily, the sister whose shadow I'd lived in for as long as I could remember, had finally reached out. Anxiety pulsed through me, mixing with years of unresolved hurt. Could I face her now, after everything I'd endured? For days, I ignored her message, convincing myself it was safer that way. Yet deep down, I knew avoiding her forever wasn't an option. So finally, on a quiet afternoon, I called the number she'd sent. Emily answered immediately, her voice softer and more hesitant than I'd ever heard it before. Lily, thank you for calling, she whispered nervously. I wasn't sure if you would. I'm here, I replied cautiously, fighting to steady my voice. What do you want? A shaky breath echoed through the line. I need to apologize, not just for what happened recently, but for everything. I never knew how badly Mom and Dad treated you. I was selfish and blind to it all. I'm so sorry, Lily. My heart twisted painfully, emotions swirling inside me, anger, sadness, and an unexpected compassion. Hearing the vulnerability in Emily's voice shattered the image I'd held of her as untouchable, perfect, indifferent. You say you didn't know, I challenged gently, feeling my voice tremble. But how could you not? How did you not see? She sighed deeply, her voice breaking slightly. I was wrapped up in my own problems, Lily. The gambling spiraled out of control. It became easier to ignore reality than face what I'd become. Our parents, they enabled me, always stepping in to rescue me, never letting me suffer consequences. It wasn't right, and She paused painfully. You became the victim of my mistakes. Tears filled my eyes. You had everything. Why gamble it away? Emily's voice filled with bitter regret. I was empty, Lily. Everything I achieved felt hollow. Gambling numbed that feeling until it destroyed me. A heavy silence settled between us. For the first time, I truly saw Emily as human, broken and flawed like me. Not the perfect golden child I envied, but a woman lost in her own darkness. What do you want now, Emily? I finally asked quietly. Nothing, she replied immediately, sincerity clear in her voice. Just your forgiveness, if you can ever offer it. And to say, thank you. Thank you? I asked, confused. Yes, Emily explained gently. Your strength finally made Mom and Dad face reality. For once, I can't rely on them to rescue me anymore. I've checked myself into rehab. I'm getting help, Lily. Real help this time. And it's because of you. My breath caught. Could I trust this? Could I risk forgiving her? But then again, forgiveness wasn't really about Emily. It was about freeing myself. Emily, I began softly, surprising myself with the clarity in my voice. I can't promise things will ever be the same between us, but I forgive you. For myself as much as for you. Her quiet sob of relief echoed through the phone. Thank you, Lily. I won't let you down again. I promise. As we ended the call, warmth flooded through me, unexpected yet comforting. I'd finally released the burden I'd carried for so long. It wasn't an instant fix, nor did it erase the scars of our past, but it was a step toward healing, a real one. In the days that followed, a strange peace settled into my life. I returned to campus, stronger, lighter. Grandma visited often, proud of the new person I'd become. Ava joked that Miami had changed me, but the truth was, I'd changed myself. My story didn't end with a perfect resolution or flawless redemption. Life rarely works that neatly. But it ended with something far more valuable. The understanding that my worth wasn't defined by my family's attention or neglect, but by my own courage to keep moving forward. And as I stood in the sunlight, finally free from shadows, I knew the future was mine alone, to shape, to embrace, and above all, to live fully. Months later, sitting quietly on the beach, I watched the gentle waves roll in, each one erasing footprints left behind, much like time gently erasing the scars I'd carried for so long. My journey hadn't been easy, yet I felt deeply grateful for every painful lesson, every tear shed, every moment of strength I discovered within myself. Emily kept her promise. She completed rehab, slowly piecing her life back together. We weren't close, not yet, but our relationship had begun to heal, cautiously, like fragile glass held together by trust and time. Grandma remained my anchor, guiding and supporting me through every step, reminding me daily that I was loved, valued, seen. Her wisdom taught me forgiveness was never weakness, but a sign of genuine strength. As for my parents, the space between us remained wide, though perhaps not forever. Forgiveness was possible, reconciliation uncertain. Yet I no longer lived waiting for their acceptance or acknowledgement. I'd found my peace elsewhere, within myself. In that quiet moment by the ocean, watching the sun set softly against a sky painted in hues of gold and lavender, I finally understood. My story wasn't defined by what I'd endured, but by the person I'd become through it all, strong, resilient, free. If there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that your worth isn't defined by anyone else. Not your family, not their expectations, not even your past. It's easy to believe we are powerless to change our stories, especially when others have written the first chapters for us. But real strength comes from realizing that we hold the pen, and it's never too late to begin rewriting. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting the pain. It simply means choosing yourself over bitterness, peace over resentment. It takes courage to let go, but that courage gives you back your freedom. So wherever you are right now, whatever shadows you might be standing in, remember this: you're never invisible. You're stronger than you know, and your story matters. Choose yourself, choose hope, and start writing a new chapter today. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and click that notification bell to join me on future journeys. Have you experienced something similar? I'd love to hear about your own stories of overcoming obstacles, finding forgiveness, or simply stepping out of the shadows. Drop your thoughts and experiences in the comments. I read every single one. Remember, you're never alone and your voice matters.